Hey YouTube, this is Green Valor, and today I want to talk about an article posted today, June 10th, 2016, on the Washington Post. And it's actually pretty interesting. It's the first time I've ever seen Justin Trudeau make sense. And yes, I've been watching this guy and his speeches, and it's just rhetoric, most of it. And I've seen his interviews and things like that. He says the classic shit, and then he goes on to spout about rhetoric. But today, in this article, it talks about marijuana and the reason why it would be beneficial to legalize it and restrict it in Canada. And the article goes on to state, I guess they are quoting Justin Trudeau in this article. Let me make sure. I'm pretty sure this is all verbatim. Yeah. It's, okay, so it's a quote. Oh, yeah, they did quote him. Okay, so they talk about how alcohol and cigarettes are they're legalized, but they're regulated. You know, you have to have an age limit, which is great, and the government controls it. You know how it's actually extremely difficult to make your own cigarettes and alcohol and sell it under the table anymore because of the heavy restriction, and it just doesn't make any sense for anyone to make it yourself and distill it and uh, do it under the table that like that. It just because it's out there in the markets like that, right? They want to do the same thing with marijuana, and that's what he's stating, which is what everybody's been saying for the longest time about marijuana, is that it would be perfectly fine if we legalized it and heavily regulated it the way we do cigarettes and alcohol. And he goes on to speak about how it affects the developing mind, much the same way alcohol would, and other narcotics. They do. They absolutely do. You drink alcohol from the age of 12, and you're gonna get fucked up. You do marijuana from the age of 12 and onwards, you're gonna get fucked up because those are your times where all the hormones are going around your body, your brain's developing, your body's developing, and it's gonna cause some abnormalities. That's just a fact. We know this to be true. These are mind-altering drugs. But as an adult, that's why we have the age limit on alcohol and cigarettes. Cigarettes, it's not really mind or bodily altering. I mean, you lose some weight, but it's more that it's just a dangerous substance and needs to be controlled. And children shouldn't be smoking cigarettes. But in the case of marijuana, you have the carcinogens from the smoke itself, and then you have the mind-altering effects. And it's very important that we get this away from the hands of children and young teens and set an age limit, an age of restriction, and sell it in venues. And that's what this article talks about, and that's what the quote is. He's talking about it's going to promote business, small business, large business, you know, and there's going to be other properties for marijuana that have been stated before. All this stuff, all this stuff, I had to see the time, all this stuff he talks about, which has been, you know, we've talked about for years. You know, Trudeau's one of those hippie motherfuckers. I'm pretty sure I've said this before, and I'm sure he's been spouting the same rhetoric, you know, leading up to his campaign. And now he's finally coming out and talking about it. And then he speaks about how easy it is to obtain marijuana in Canada. It's probably the easiest in the world. I don't disagree. I actually believe he's correct in that. We are a very liberal society, and because of that, even getting caught with marijuana anymore, it's more of a slap on the wrist, really. You don't really get charged. We're at the point now where it's essentially decriminalized. It's not really decriminalized, but essentially is. And there aren't really many punishments for it unless you have excess amounts. So legalizing it would make sense, and then regulating it, and then selling it in certain venues just to have it as a controlled substance. That way, would make everything easier. He talks about how it's going to promote the economy and things like that. Definitely will. You've got another product on the market that people want to buy. It's going to promote our economy, and then if you say other countries start legalizing it, I think there are a few already in the West that have legalized it. Canada, especially specifically British Columbia, they already have a lot of pot growers, and it may not be legalized, but they're definitely growing pot. Once we legalize it, I know there are. I'm not going to drop any names, but I know big, a couple big businesses in my area, in the Windsor Essex area, that definitely grow pot on the side. They're they grow, tomatoes and cucumbers and stuff like that, but and some flowers, but their main money comes from marijuana, right? And these greenhouses. And it's sort of under the table, they pay off the right people. But imagine if they legalize that and they can just turn it into, they can expand the business, they don't have to hide it anymore. They don't have to pay people under the table, import, immigrants to work under the table for next to nothing. They can employ Canadian citizens, promote work, stuff like that. It's gonna become, and the business is going to grow exponentially when it becomes legalized. So obviously they can afford to employ Canadians. Helps promote business. And I'm really just glad Justin Trudeau has come out and said this. Honestly, it's probably the first thing I've ever heard out of his mouth that wasn't complete crap. And I hope he goes through with this. I hope it does become legalized, and I hope he keeps pushing this agenda because it doesn't really make any sense not to do this. It's going to promote the health and well-being of children. It's going to open up the market a little bit more. It's going to promote our economy, create jobs. It's just good all around. I don't really see a major argument as to not going through with this, to be honest with you. But anyways, I just want to talk about this article. That was my thoughts. Those are my opinions. This is Green Valor. Links to the article is going to be in the description if you want to read it yourself. As always, if you like the content, subscribe, like, dislike, depending on your opinion, and comment because I do love suggestions. And you have a good day.